you can mix your spices right up in here. I tend to not do this. What I do is I put my whatever I'm going to pickle into the jar. Grab a jar here. I'm using wide mouth jars right now. People who know me know they're like gasping because I very seldom use wide mouth jars, but I did a trade. I traded some medicine advice for, and what I got off of it was 2 cases of jars. So they were wide mouth. I tend to be cheap, so I don't use the wide mouth usually, but I've decided that I'm going to use them for this. So what I tend to do is I tend to put my thistle in, then put my spices in. You know, I take a spoonful of spices and stick it in there, a couple things of garlic, put it in there, and then however much salt I'm going to use, put it in there, and then pour the brine over the top of it. You can do it both ways. You can put your spices in here, some of your spices in here, some of your spices in here, pour this over. The problem with only having it in here is the fact that you're not going to have it equal per jar, because your first batch is going to have all of the stuff that floats, and your last batch is going to have all the stuff that sinks. You can put anything as your spices. If you like your pickles hot, you can put cayenne pepper in here. There's such a thing called pickling spices. You can use those if you like mustard. Some people like mustard, some people like horseradish. Whatever you like. I'm very simple in my taste. I like usually my alums or my onions. So I've got fresh garlic and dried onions. I love dill, and then the salt. And really, your vinegar, water, and salt are the only 3 ingredients you need for preserving. The rest of it is just for flavor. So I'm going to actually get this on the stove, get this going, and you're going to want to do all of this here first. Let me go back to the jar. Sorry, I kind of get ahead of myself here. I'm heating the jars up in a pot and boiling them. Some people will just pour hot water, extremely hot water into them and let them set. That's fine. Problem is most people nowadays have water softeners, and you're putting in the chemical, the salts from the water softeners into your jars. I don't like that myself. So I don't use hot water from the tap. Other people will microwave them. Again, this is perfectly fine, except those jars can never be used for pressure canning. Microwaving does weaken the jars. And so if you put them in a pressure canner, they'll explode in the pressure canner. So if you want to microwave them, again, that's fine. Just A, never use a pressure canner, or B, mark them with an M on top when you do the labeling, and then make sure that you always keep those jars separate from anything that you do with pressure canning. So there's that. So I've got that going. I'm going to turn this on to low while I'm out gathering. You want to do all of this before you start gathering. Anytime you're going to pickle, you want to do this. And the main reason for that is the minute you remove that plant from life, you cut the corn off the stalk, you cut the stalk of the thistle from the ground, you have severed its life force. It sounds like all mystical and everything like that, but it begins to deteriorate. That's what happens with dead things. They start to deteriorate. So the minute you sever its life force, it begins to deteriorate. It loses its sweetness, it loses its medicinal value, it's losing its nutrition. So you want to be ready to get that into the jars and get it canned as quickly as possible. So that's why we get everything prepared before we go home. So I'm going to put this on the stove, get it going on a very low heat because it's going to take me a little bit. I'll take you out while I'm doing this. Also, I'm going to get this heating up. That might heat up a little bit faster because A, there's a lot more water to this, and B, you want those boiling for a couple minutes at least. You want to kill off anything that's on there. And I'll grab you guys, take you out into the woods with a knife. Not into the woods, how about into the field with a knife, and we're going to gather up some thistles. So, be back in a minute. We are in between storms right now. Woohoo! You can just feel it. One of the joys of being a meteorologist is that even if you don't do weather magic, you get used to feeling it. Now, thistles, you can use any kind of thistle for pickling. What kind of thistle you use doesn't really matter when you're pickling. Different thistles have better flavors or worse flavors than the other ones. My favorite thistle to eat is tall thistle. In fact, if I find tall thistle, I don't pickle it because I like the flavor so much. I just eat it where it is. It never lasts long enough to go on the pickle. Both thistles are usually the ones that I pickle, basically because they're a bigger thistle, so you get more bang for your buck. You don't have to work so hard at it. But there's pasture thistles are all over the place here, so a lot of times you can wade into a thing of pasture thistles that are 6-7 feet tall and get those. For people who use those, and you can get a lot of them right in a small spot. And it really doesn't matter because you're going to be adding the flavor to them through your pickling. So that's not the problem, or doesn't matter anywhere, any way whatsoever how you do that. Now, if you want to gather thistles, you want a long knife. Really, the only bad part that you have to worry about is the original cut. After that, it's pretty easy. You just don't want it to fall over onto your hand, but after that, you're set. If you've got yourself a machete, you know you wanted to be one of those cool people and went out and got yourself a machete, and all your friends are looking at you like, you live in an open woodland, you're not hacking your way through the Amazon jungle, what do you need a giant machete for? Now's the time you get to laugh at them and say, oh, this is what I needed a giant machete for. The longer your knife, the further away or the less you have to reach into where the thistle is, and the further away, so if it does start falling over, you got more time to pull it back without stabbing yourself. But basically, when you want to cut a thistle, you go down to the base with your long knife, and you get in there and you start cutting. There we go. Now, you're using the knife for all of this. And you don't really need to strip it of everything right now. If you look down into the core, you can kind of see the outside is already pulling away from the sheath on the core. And that's what we're going to do. I just gently rest my hand on top of the core, and all I need to do is use one finger. And I reach down with the other finger. Oh, I can't do it with... And I pull... Well, basically, I'm going to pull it off with this finger, and I'll just show you that here real quick. I'll be right back. Okay, so you can kind of see that I pulled that back. Now that gives me some place to hang on to. And from there I can just cut it off with a knife. I just need some place to put my hand where I'm not grabbing onto all those thorns. So you just peel it back real carefully, very gingerly grab it, and as soon as you got that open spot, you're gold. And so now I'm just going to take the knife and cut the rest of these leaves off. The peeling you will do before you do the pickling, but you don't have to do that right now. I just do enough so that I got a handhold to hold on to cut all the rest of the thistle off. Back in a bit. Okay, so there's my de-leafed thistle stalk. There's all the leaves on the ground. The leaves are perfectly edible. You peel them off. Let's see, I'm going to put this into my basket. I got one over there, and I'm going to put another one in there with it. You reach down to the... Well, I don't want a double one. Let me see if I can... Well, we'll use the double one. You reach down the bottom, and you just... Jesus, like I said, this is where you need more than one person doing this. Let's see if I leave this sitting here. It's not going to... If I can kind of point this in the... Whoops, and then I didn't even... Busy worried about the camera. And you just very gingerly grab onto the end that doesn't have any prickers on. Reach in and start pulling off the outer sheath. Like that. And then once you get the first one done, see, I'm busy with trying to keep the camera balanced on my leg, then it gets easier. I have no idea if you guys can see this. See, then all the prickers just come right off when you grab on and start pulling. All the prickers come right off with the outer sheath. Oh, there's a nice chunk. Finally, I got a good size. And there you go. Now it's mostly off. Usually I can do that a lot faster. And you can just eat this. That's just a vegetable right there. It's kind of like celery. Very watery. Has a lot of water to it, which is again why it is such a good detoxer. And you just chomp it down. So the leaves you can use. If you don't want to, though, you don't have to. So I usually don't worry too much about them. But anyway, I'm going to move on and gather some more stalk. Okay, so I thought I would just show this here's got a lot of prickers on it. And you're going to have to excuse me because Bodie is going to chew his squeaky toy, and I'm quite happy because that means he's not eating any of my stuff or anybody else's stuff. So I have no problem with him. But there's usually going to be a spot that doesn't have any thorns. So reach in, hold on to that, and then just kind of slide your fingernail underneath the green. This one's kind of, and then just pull. And as soon as you get that spot pull down, and we're just going to pull it all the way off, then you just go to the next slide. And sometimes you get them in really big spots, big quantities, and then you just pull the next spot off. And every time you get your thumbnail and get that another smooth spot, you got more spots to grab onto. But it's just, this is a small one, of course, because I'm holding it up for you to see. But okay, let me get my thumbnail down in there. Okay, and then you grab, get your stick your thumbnail down in there, gingerly grab on and start pulling. If it hits a branch, it'll give a little bit harder pull, but you can still pull it off. And again, you just keep doing that. You can peel it with a knife. I find it takes more work with a knife than it does without one. But you know, if you want, you can take your knife and peel it down, but then you're probably going to have to go back over and fix some other things. But sometimes, you know, that works really good just for starting it too, if you don't want to stick your thumbnail down in there. Oop. I got enough to grab onto now, but now I can't make it. Anyway, and that's what we're going to do. We're just going to peel these now. I've got everything boiled.